Construction champions, it's your host, Ron Nussbaum, and we're here for another amazing episode of Construction Champions Podcast, where we're burning the damn house down twice a week, Mondays and Thursdays. I'm super excited to have another construction podcaster here, a concrete guy as well. Jaden, it is great to have you here with us today.
Nice to meet you.
So why don't you take a minute and tell all the construction champions out there a little bit about yourself and what got you here to today?
Well, you mentioned it. I'm a podcaster. It's kind of been a long journey to this point. Grew up in construction, third generation concrete finisher, actually. And, the whole narrative was to go to school, get out of construction. So was going to school for engineering and kind of didn't feel like that was the thing for me, but I got a pre-engineering degree and a web development certificate. So it's kind of leading us to what my podcast is about. So it's the blue collar future. So we're kind of getting people talking about how to be in the trades, how to be successful, reasons to be in them, because there's such good jobs available. And so, yeah.
Awesome, man. Well, I'm excited to have you on. I'm excited to have a conversation, and I'm going to jump right in and ask you the $1 million question, which is, what makes a construction champion?
I've been thinking about that since I read that question that you pose, and I would say, are you happy? So I see a lot of contractors every day. There's lots of angst and anger and stuff on job sites, and a lot of people that are just generally unhappy. You see people that are not in good shape, hating their life, hating their job. Maybe they fell into construction and don't have a real purpose. So I would say, are you happy and are you fulfilled? Do you have a purpose in what you do?
That's a great one. And I don't know if we've heard that one. This is episode 81. Yeah, episode 81. I don't think we've heard I haven't had anybody come on here and say, are you happy? Because we do tend to be a disgruntled bunch of people. And I'm sure you've seen it, third generation.
Yeah, well, especially concrete guys. You know what they say, bunch of assholes.
So, I mean, how do we start to become happier? What's the secret there?
Not sure I've quite figured that out. I think it really comes down to being fulfilled in what you do and having a purpose for why you do it. Because a lot of people are chasing the money, chasing the dollar, just because they want to chase the dollar. And that doesn't necessarily make you happy. And if you don't have something driving you more, past that, you get to the money, you get whatever your goal is, and then you start thinking, well, what now? And then you think, well, I hate this. It sucks. There's a lot of stress, the weather, all sorts of things that we have to deal with. And if you don't have a real reason pushing you to do it, that can lead to pretty unhappy life, gotta say.
Yeah, I can see that, where it's a very money driven around the industry, especially when it comes to being an employee, because I think that's where we've lacked with like just even customer or company loyalty. We have people that are willing to jump ship because they think the grass is greener on the other side. I think in the last 10 years, we've started to see some of that shift where people are building companies. They just happen to be construction companies, and they're taking all the stuff that works other places and implementing it. But you can't chase the money. I 100% agree with that in anything you do, whether it's construction or any aspect of your life. If you're just chasing the money, eventually you're going to be unhappy.
Yep. Yeah. I've heard a lot of that going around lately, where you kind of see trends in what the people online will say, like the advice or the quotes that you hear people say. And one thing I've been seeing going around lately is the amount of happiness doesn't change past a certain dollar amount. So you take someone that, let's say you're a 6-figure guy, but we just jump you up. I mean, maybe we even double your salary. Well, that doesn't really make you happier. That just gives you more money. And I mean, you end up being in the same spot because nothing changes. And one reason one thing I heard along that I really liked was, until you become the person that makes that amount of money and is fulfilled there, it doesn't really do anything for you. So it's about becoming that person, and that money will come instead of chasing the dollar. So
You're speaking my language, man. Because I mean, I have a software company, and that's not like where I originally came from. I'm a Marine. I was in residential construction for over a decade, and now I have a software company. But I tell my wife all the time, like, this journey is about Ron becoming the man that gets this company to where it needs to be, not the company becoming that. Like, I have to become the leader that can get this company where it needs to go. I think having monetary goals and chasing that kind of stuff is one of the greatest things that you can chase, but you have to understand, like, it's not going to fulfill you, but it gives you something to chase that's physical that you can grasp. And I think we have to have a combination of that, like the dreams and goals that we can grasp and all monetary, that you can relate to money, and then the stuff that you can relate to that purpose or a greater feeling or what you truly are passionate about. And a lot of times that's getting to the point where you can have some freedom to do that stuff. Is what I've found is that what excites most people doesn't necessarily pay anything, but it's an investment of time is what they would be investing.
You mentioned your wife there, and that is a huge deal. So you see a lot of people, on one hand, they do chase the money, but I'd say another part of that is, especially if you aren't fulfilled in your purpose, if your relationships are not where they should be, and you're not investing the time into your family and into your kids, and you're only pushing that because maybe you think that getting the dollar is the way to go, getting that money is the way to go, because provider, you provide for your family. If your relationship with your wife and your kids isn't where it should be, then why do we even do it? And I see a lot of people fall into that trap too. So
Yeah, we end up just burning it down at both sides and never get anywhere with either. And we're just not happy. I spent a lot of my time within construction not happy, and it was all self-inflicted. Like it's the are you happy is a really good question for everybody. And a lot of times it's just us. Like, we're not allowing ourselves to be happy
yeah.
because, like you said, say you even double that salary, most of the time that comes with more responsibility. It comes with more bullshit. Is that worth it? Like, at the end of the day, I mean, that's stuff that when you have a family, you have to start to ask yourself, what does that look like? And is this worth it?
Yep, exactly. And that's where becoming the person that makes that money comes into play, because like you said, you just add more responsibility on and more headache. And if you're not happy at 100,000, you're not going to be happy at 200,000. So, it's like more and more I notice, and with my podcast, I wanted to talk a lot about business and trade work. And we found ourselves talking about meaning and purpose and relationships more often. And it really is the more important thing in anything you do, is just making sure that your connection with people and your connection with yourself is where it should be. Because at the end of the day, the money's great, the money's awesome, you should have money, but at the expense of everything else in your life, it isn't worth it. So
I like, when you talk about that double, I mean, it's double, everything doubles unless you double. And when you talk about being that person, like, if you're still that $100,000 a year person and you go to 200,000 and you don't become that person, everything has a magnifying glass on it. It all doubles the pressure, the stress at home, the stress at the job site, unless you have that stuff locked in to begin with.
Yeah. Well, and honestly, I can't say I've got that figured out either, because I mean, partly my podcast is I always tell people it's more for me than anybody, because I'm learning more about myself, I feel like, than I'm even giving out to people. But I just hope that people take from conversations and are like, oh man, maybe I can implement that. Maybe I can try that out. So
Well, the great thing about podcasting is that this lives forever.
yeah.
Unless they delete the internet, every conversation you have and you put out there will have an impact on the construction industry. And this right here, 5 years from now, somebody could be on YouTube and see Construction Champions podcast. Are you happy? And listen to it. And it could completely change their life. That excites me.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It does. And I've been in that position, because I've been in the place where I just don't know what I'm doing. I don't know why, and I'm not fulfilled in the job. And the reason I say that is so important is because of all of the different stresses that come along with being in construction. And from my experience being here in Utah and doing concrete, having the physical stress, the mental stress, the elemental stress constantly on you, being out in the sun. If you don't have like your foundation built of your why are you doing it, it's pretty easy to fall into substance abuse and depression and all of those things. So
Yeah, that we see all too often in the industry and we don't really ever talk about. I mean, one day we not that we don't even talk about, we kind of praise it
yeah.
sometimes. Like it's no, not only do I kick ass on the job site, man, I'll drink everybody under the table here and I'll just get up the next morning and we'll do this all over again. And it's
Yeah.
this unhealthy cycle that we just let
Yeah.
continue on over and over. And like I said, a lot of times we end up praising that person, like, man, he's a badass on the job site and not on the job site.
Yeah, well, it's too common of a thing where you get to work and crack open a beer and start the day, and drink all day and go home and drink all night, and even sometimes that can be manageable if you have a purpose. I'm not for that, but not having that purpose in place, I mean, you do that, and that is a slippery slope. That is a spiral downward that you're not easily coming out of.
Mm-hmm. So how do you help, or how do we help guys? Say there's somebody out there that's listening. They clicked on this because they're not happy. They're that guy that we're talking about right now that doesn't have any of that purpose. They're not happy. They're everything's a disaster. It's just a shit show all the time. How do we help them get out of that?
I would say step one is to evaluate yourself. And what I mean by that is, are you taking care of yourself in ways that you should? Are you eating, properly? Or, are you stopping at gas stations every day and eating a bunch of junk food? Start, meal prepping and bringing sandwiches to work. I mean, that's what I started doing when I very first started meal prepping, is I just bring sandwiches to work, and the amount of difference that it makes is insane. And I would say start evaluating that. It's evaluating your health, evaluating, taking in information like listening to this podcast, taking information that you can hear, and maybe things will click in your brain about what it is that you're after, and really dial in on what you want. But first, I think, comes with getting your mind right and getting yourself right. So I advocate a lot for working out. So I've been working out and doing concrete for probably 6 or 7 years. And I advocate for that so strongly because of the mental gains that you get from it and the physical. And I think that is kind of one of the major steps to figuring out everything is your physical and mental health.
I 100% agree with that. I think it's the days of looking at that I'm on the job site, that's my workout. Those days need to be over with. And we need to focus on who we are as the total package, and it'll make a huge difference. I mean, we're just knocking on if you've ever been in construction and worked out in it, we're knocking on the gas stations. I love that because that's life. Like
Wow.
that's what it is.
Yeah, it's the contractor mentality, the construction mentality. It's, I stop at the gas station every morning, get a pack of donuts and an energy drink or a beer,
Mm-hmm.
get a ice cold beer to start off the day and beat myself up. And oh yeah, I work out at work, I don't need to go do anything else outside of it. And it's that whole idea that it makes you, it brings you down a path that isn't very good for you. I always
Mm-hmm.
tell people, like, our bodies can handle a lot more than we think. Just because we're using our bodies all day doesn't mean that you don't still need to also do other things. So
Well, we're using our bodies from a different perspective than
yeah.
actually training them and training our mind, our body, our diet, like all of this stuff. I think there's a lot of things that we do in construction that I look back on and I'm like that's why I wasn't happy. Like I was shooting myself in the foot. And I think a lot of people do that. Like we just do it's already hard enough. Like the job is literally hard enough. And then we just inherently have all these industry things that we just do on top of it all that makes it even harder than it even has to be.
Yeah. Well, starting off your day right is one of the most important things. Like, a lot of people roll out of bed, stop at the gas station. There's no preparation going into showing up on the job and being there to work. When you start prepping for the day and maybe you get up 30, 45 minutes early and maybe you make a sandwich, maybe you make your coffee, sit down and reflect a little bit. I mean, a lot of people preach meditation in the morning, and I think that's good, but maybe even just getting up early, maybe that's what you need to do. And people laugh because too when I say that, because they already get up early, to be out on the job. But I started waking up earlier and not just rolling out of bed and going to the gas station, and the difference it made was insane.
Well, I
Couldn't
mean, think
believe
about
it.
how late we stay. We get up early, but we stay up late. Like
Yeah.
we do all this stuff that is almost self-sabotaging
Yeah.
to what could be the ultimate experience. We just do stuff that just intuitively doesn't make it that way.
Yeah. Well, you talk about preparation, and working out and being healthy is a preparation to be 100% on the job so that you can learn and do the best you can at work and get ahead and really find your purpose, because if you're just rolling with the flow and taking the punches every day, and it's really hard to get to see out of that, because you're always in a state of, you know not having enough sleep, or not being fed enough, or not eating proper food, not training your body and training your mind. That's another, I mean, that's just as important.
Mm-hmm.
um, Constantly in this state of really just in this low operating state, and it's hard to see out of that. So that's probably part of the reason it's hard to see to where you could be from there.
Well, the great thing is you have a podcast. We have this podcast. There's resources out there. I mean, I think I look at it and I think the next 10 years in the construction industry is going to absolutely be amazing with what I'm seeing happen and the traction I'm seeing out there, the mindset shift that's happening. To me, the next decade is going to be unbelievable.
Yeah. And that's, a big reason why I started my podcast is the jobs are just going to get better, and we need to start the mindset shift to show people what it could be instead of the typical contractor mentality or the contractor stereotype where you see a dirty downtrodden person that's drinking beer all day at work. No.
All right, man. Well, hey, it's been awesome having you on the show today. A lot of knowledge, just are you happy? I think that's $1 million question in itself. That might be better than what makes a construction champion. Maybe that's what you should start asking on your show. I don't know how your show works, but maybe you should just start asking people if they're happy. But so for everybody out there, if they wanted to follow you, listen to your podcast, or get a hold of you, what's the best ways for them to do that?
I'm most active on Instagram at Jaden R. Robison. You can also find the podcast on Instagram, Blue Collar Future. And the podcast is everywhere podcasts are played, and YouTube at the Blue Collar Future. And I also have a community on the way centered around the podcast with kind of weekly calls and course content, networking with other contractors that is coming. So you can find out about all of that on there. So
awesome, man. Well, thank you for taking the time to be on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
All right, construction champions, another amazing episode where we asked a really, really good question. Or actually, an answer to a really good question was another question. And that is, are you happy? Now, we talk all the time on here about going and looking in the mirror and having these conversations with yourself. I think that this is a moment where you need to go do that. Go to your mirror. Ask yourself, am I happy? Am I happy with what I'm physically doing? Am I happy with where my mind's at? Am I happy with my relationships? Am I happy with how my business is going? Am I happy with how my job's going? And really start to figure that out, because here's the thing is your answer to all of those has one thing in common, and it's you. And it's like Jaden said about, you have to become that person. So if you're not happy, you have to figure out what that purpose is, what does make you happy, and then start to become that person. And understand this might take a little bit of time, but why spend the rest of your life being unhappy or not understanding what you're doing and why? Why not just figure it out tonight when you go home, look in the mirror, and then change some things every day? Just change something, do something different. So, construction champions, until next time, be the champion you were meant to be. Hey, construction champions, it's your host, Ron Nussbaum here, and I want to talk to you about how you can automate all of your marketing. We've had so many people on here talk about getting the systems in place. Well, we have partnered with Build 12 and Construction Champions podcast. Les O'Hara, the founder, what really excites me is his 30 years in the industry. And now he's built a system to be able to nurture your leads and continue to utilize that. I personally use the system myself. Build 12 is absolutely amazing. There's a lot of value in there, and it's a way to start getting away from Angie's List and all of that kind of stuff and start actually creating your own leads every day and have a system for them. So go on our website, check out the show notes, go check out Build 12 and what it can do for the front end of your business today. It's absolutely amazing. I highly recommend going and meeting with Les and his son, Devin, and talking to him about what they built for their own business, so the rest of the industry can take benefit from that. Here on Construction Champions, we're all about helping each other out. And what is better than contractors helping contractors? I say nothing. So let's go take this to the next level. Go check out Build 12. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me or Les or his son, Devin. We're here to help. We want to continue to grow the industry.